Hello everyone, welcome back once again to my channel. This is Somnath, and in this video I'll talk about how the dynamic QR code works. So what happened, like there are two type of QR codes, and one is a static type and other one is the dynamic one. So let's say for example the QR code that you can see, it's a static QR code. Means if you scan this particular QR code, it will take you to a specific URL always, and the content as well as this image is not modifiable, kind of an immutable. Okay, now I already created a video a long back, as you can see on the screen. So I have given the video URL in the description box so that you can check this out later if you're interested to create a static QR code with a very fast and easy way, and I have used Node.js for that one. So in this video I'll mostly focus on the dynamic QR code generation, and here as well I have used the Node.js as a technology to build this application. Now the difference with the dynamic and static is like for the dynamic one, the content can be modifiable. I mean to say, let's say if you scan this URL QR code, it will take you to website A, and if it doesn't work for some reason, you can change the content to website B, so that scanning the same QR code will navigate to a different website. Now question is like, it will be easy if I can give you a demo to understand how this works, right, instead of talking a lot of things. So let's go to this particular QR code, a very simple app I created. So let's assume you just want to initiate certain promotions of your brand or product. Okay, and let's assume this is your URL, very popular URL, google.com. okay, that is your website URL, and that which you want to create a QR code with this URL. So for the dynamic one, I'll not generate the QR code directly with this original URL, but I'll generate a short URL out of this first, kind of a placeholder. Okay, I'm using MongoDB behind the scene. So let's also check out what's happening behind the scene. I think if I refresh, yeah, this is kind of a URL, shortened URL it just created, as you can see, right, against this target or original URL. So now I'll create a Google QR code of this shortened URL, and this is the QR code. So if I scan this code, what will happen? Technically I'm supposed to, let's click on the open link, it will open the google.com. Perfect. So now the irony is, somehow you think like this is an incorrect website, mistakenly you created a code and already you dispatched attaching those QR code on the product or the box. So if the customer now scan this QR code, they won't be knowing your promotional offers, right? So it's basically a loss of things, loss of business, right? So how to fix it? So let's assume the correct URL is yahoo.com. okay, or maybe sap.com, what's anything you can do, or maybe Yahoo, whatever, not a problem. Sorry. So I will not generate a URL again out of this, but I'll click on the update. Okay, if I click on update, so for the same QR code, I mean to say for the same shortened URL, I just updated the yahoo.com instead of google.com. So let's go to the backend now and let's see what's happened. You see the same thing now replaced with the yahoo.com. So if I now try, if I now try this out, if I scan this, if I generate a QR code first of all and then go for scanning, what will happen? Right, so same box, same label, hardcode printout, but if I change from the behind the scene this things, then if user clicks on the open link, they will actually take them to yahoo.com, right? So we can see this correct website. So that's where the dynamic QR code comes handy. So now this kind of a project over the internet, I see like it's kind of you have to pay some prices for that, but it's completely free. You'll get to know everything, how it works. A lot of things you'll learn if you don't know about how to integrate with the MongoDB, then Node.js or URL shortened and how it works. So everything you will get to know in this project. So stay tuned if you are interested for this kind of a learning till the end of this video, and subscribe my channel if you have not done yet. Don't forget to hit the bell icon, because that will intimate you the moment I upload a new content, right? So all set. So let's get into the project. So I have this Git repository which I have created with this particular project. So I'll basically start with this cloning this project, okay, and I'll explain everything, every bits of piece, so that you get comfortable. And if you are not sure much what's going on, because there are lots of things I have done, if we start doing everything as a typing, then probably it will take a long to finish this video, right? So that's the reason, for the benefit of the time, I go to clone this project. I already opened my VS Code with an empty folder. So I'll go to terminal and let's clone it, and that way it will create a new project folder which is called dynamic keyword collection. So let's get into that and open the code again, okay? So because that way it will be easy for me not to confuse with which folder I am in. Alright, so now I am in this particular project, and all the codes, it's already available, but I'll explain, I'll walk you through everything, so that you should not be confused, right, what's going on. So now after I clone it, and what the next thing is, because I'm using lots of dependencies for this project, so let us see what are the dependencies that you can find in the package.json. Because I'm assuming that you already know Node.js, so there is no point to say like how to create a Node.js project like npm init minus or -y, etc. So that's assumption. In case you are not very sure about Node.js, how it works, I can just recommend one more thing. You can check any of the tutorials on the YouTube or any other platform you are willing to, or maybe as another option I can suggest, in my channel itself I already created lots of video on that. So you can check this playlist called capm Node.js. So the first few 1 to 4 I spoke about the Node.js concepts, so don't get confused with capm. Maybe it's very specific to SAP cloud application programming, but that doesn't matter. The first one is independent of capm, it's completely a pure Node.js discussion. So probably you can just get an idea like how Node works, in case you are not sure. And after this you will get a very good grasp after completing these four episodes or 4 videos. All right, so after cloning it, what the next thing I want to do, I want to install the dependencies. So there are many dependencies you can see. One are the productive dependencies, and other one is the dev dependencies, okay? So nodemon I am using because if I change anything in the project, then nodemon will keep a track of the changes, and it will keep restarting my server instead of manual hard restart. That is the purpose nodemon does. That's why it's a dev dependencies. And I'm using a dot environment. I'm using an EJS template, which is an embedded JavaScript. It's a server-side rendering. It's very simple like an HTML, but it can respond to the JavaScript, so you can embed JavaScript within HTML, kind of a concept. It's a very popular, and there are plenty other options like mouse task, maybe handlebar, chat, pug, etc. But CG is more popular, embedded JavaScript. That's why I'm just using it. Obviously for the server I'm using Express.js for my server buildup. I'm using Mongoose as a middleware to connect with my MongoDB, which is my persistence layer. NanoID I'm using for my URL shortener, and of course the primary thing is the QR code. This middleware helps to generate the QR code. I think all dependencies I explained. And one more thing, in the start command I just use the nodeman app.js, because app.js is my entry point. So to start with, I'll just install those dependencies, because these are not actually installed yet, right? So it will create a node modules, as you already know. So it will start npm I is the short form of install. So it will start installing all the dependencies based on these versions, and already mentioned the package log.json. One important note is this nano ID I am just installing the lower version, one step lower, because the simple reason is I realize this nano ID works with an ESM model. Okay, means I have to use a syntax like import something from something. So that kind of a syntax I need to use it. But I already used the require statement for most of other dependencies, dependent libraries. So that's the reason I just switched to a lower port. It's nothing different, only the older syntax about require will still work. So just wanted to call out, because in case you find a difference, you should know why I'm doing it. All right, so my dependencies all installed, as you know, and I'm good to start the project. If I run npm start, it will actually start the project. Okay, so I just assume the other port is actually active. It is not the case. If you just look at this error, it is actually saying that certain Mongo's connection is not working. A very simple reason is, for the security purpose, I didn't add it where it is in the config folder. I didn't added the .env file. So .env I just gave it as a dummy way. So obviously this one will not work, but I just gave this kind of a thing so that you get to know what would be your configuration parameter, what are the parameter and the values, right? So accordingly you can create one more file. So let's create one more file, and that is called .env, so which will basically contain all our configurations. So I'm copying it, but I'll basically pause the video because I don't want to share the password and all. So I'll just refill those content, and then I'll just start showing how it works. So my environment is now filled with, and purposefully in the git ignore I mentioned that this should be ignored. That's why it is not reached in the GitHub repository, and that's the way we should limit the visibility. All right, so now let's try once again. Hopefully this time it should not complain, and let's see. Voila, it's really working. So let's check my other site if it's working on the same application. Let's rerun again. Yes, it's working. If I go to QR code, voila, everything fine. So at least app is up and running. Only thing is you have to remember that you need to correct this environment with the .env with the details as I have mentioned. So let's understand how things overall working. It's very straightforward. So I'm going to the app.js because that is the entry point. Let me make it little small, and I hope the zoom is okay, or it is better. So how this project works is, I just so this app.js is actually the entry point, and here all kind of dependent models or libraries I'm using, and I think it's well known to you. If you know Node.js, nothing much to talk about. And I'm basically using my DB schema configurations from this folder called config.db. This is the file, and here I just trying to connect with my MongoDB, getting my Mongo URI string from my environment file, and just using certain basic configurations. All right, so that's does my MongoDB connection. And to connect exactly, I just call this particular connectdb function. That's where my MongoDB will be connected. Then I'm using EJS as the view engine for the server-side rendering, and for my static files to expose, like my style.css, I need to use this syntax, kind of a middleware I'm using, express.static. And that I also explained in my last episode, last video on my QR code, static QR code generation. You can check this out also. Two routers I'm using. How router works, I also explained in my YouTube channel. These videos you can see Node.js Express with router and controllers, right? So you can just look at those videos to understand if you don't know Node.js much, as I said. And so intentional is like when user will generate the short URL. So let's understand how this short URL works. So for that, I have this file called qrgen. Okay, so there are three buttons. The first one is generate the short URL, and the second one is actually for the QR code generator, and third one is for the update process. So if I don't mention form action, what will happen? It will take the default action of the included form. So included form is over here, and the action is API URL shortener. So you just notice I have added prefix with API because I have mentioned in the app.js, if someone triggers with the API, then it will go to the URL shortener. So this router is considering all my URL shortener functions or the kind of a logic. So let's get into that. Obviously certain default things I'm just adding as a dependency, and this is my post method because generate URL means I will create an entry to the database in my Mongo database. So I'm already first grabbing the original URL. Original URL means this value google.com, right? And then I am just adding up certain base value. So base is over here. So you can put your domain name or host name, port name. I am using my computer IP because I wanted to demo it from my mobile, because my mobile and computer both on the same Wi-Fi. So that's why my IP address and port works. Otherwise, some other approach I had to take, like deploying it to some other cloud environment, or maybe hosting it in ngrok or nginx. I didn't want to do that complexities, but simple IP and port I'm using. And this kind of features, it's handy because when you are using a shortened URL, that's a problem. The problem is the user don't know which domain they are actually navigating to. That's kind of a security risk they can feel, right? But if you can embed your domain name and host as your brand, right, so then they can get a confidence like it's not a fake or kind of a hacking URL, right? So that's a nice thing, because if you want to do those kind of things with the bit.lys and all, then they will charge it more. Okay, so that's where this URL shortener shortens the thing. So I'm just embedding my base URL, and I'm using a nano ID middleware to create the ID, shorten ID. And I'm just creating, first finding some against this original URL, anything I found in the database or not. If I find it, then that value I'm showing it, because I'm rendering this keywordgen as an EJS file, because keywordgen is my second form, which is showing over here. I think you are able to follow along, not much complicated, you just have to pay little attention. So this is the keywordgen and this is the home, two different EJS I have just created. All right, and now if you go to the URL shortener, which is in my routes, yeah, so that's where I'm just sending it. Otherwise, if it's not found in the DB and first time I'm generating a URL shortener, then it will create a new URL, shorten URL, and there I'm just adding up this base and nav, right? And that way the URL is getting created, and I'm saving it to my database. Simple, right? Not much complicated. That's all the purpose. So URL shortener features I have just put it in this route, and all other purpose like update and redirection, as well as the generation code, everything wrapped in the index.js router. So when someone will navigate, or before navigate, let's understand quickly the generation part, right? Otherwise little bit complicated. So QR code means this is what I'm going to generate the URL, rather the QR code, sorry. So this is certain basic configuration to make my look and feel of the QR code, and this is the short URL against which I'll create my QR code, as you already know now, and I'm just passing those values from my input screen. That's all. That's where my QR code generation works. A very simple piece of code. And when I'm updating with a new original URL, so this I'm just grabbing from the request body. I'm first trying to see against the short URL if any entry found or not, right? Because my update will happen against the short URL only. So as you can see, I'm just updating with this original URL with this short URL against this short URL. That's all. Otherwise I'm just saying that there is no short URL found, right? So that's very simple. And the last feature, which is the redirection. So this is the target path along with the short URL ID, which is generated by my Nano ID middleware. So I'm just checking if something this URL found in the DB or not, right? Short URL. And if found, then I will get the original URL out of that, right? So this is something, an URL which is kind of a URL ID, right? And the number of click, because the moment user clicks on that, it will basically check how many clicks happen. So many kind of analytical and interesting values you can grab during this click, right? So I'm just clicking how many number of times user clicked my QR code, so that I'm just tracking over here. And then I'm just using a 302 redirection. And 302 and 301 difference: 302 means it's a temporary redirection and 301 is a permanent redirection, right? So 301 means Google will create an indexing of your website. If you go for 302, then your indexing will not happen. So that's kind of a basic fundamentals. So I'm just returning to my original URL, right? And that way my scanning the same QR code, it basically navigates to a different web page, right? I think that's all. I just wanted to grab it. It's in my GitHub repository. You can clone it, you can try it out. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Though I have not created everything from scratch, it will take a lot of time to finish this video. I think I just walk you through just to understand how things are overall done, and now it will be easy for you to understand once you look at the code by your own. Okay, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Again, we'll come back to a different tutorial. So till then, goodbye.